I basically kicked everyone's thoughts of me in the face. Starting a business was not the thing for me.
I hear your explanation, but I refuse to accept it.
I really don't care what people think. Let's make sure we don't do that at Augusta. That's why I hired you.
What are you doing?
I hired Brian. Hey, I have a magic wand. That's what I would do. Hey everyone, it's Mike Handy's here, and this is Brian Rand. He is one of the trainers and one of our team members at Command Center. Been there for over a year now. And as part of what some of you have requested to have more interview-style questions to me, instead of just having random people who have no idea who I am that are going to ask very surface questions, we decided, hey, why don't we just ask people who know me the best, know the business is the best, and can kind of push back on some of the things that I talk about instead of just being, how did you get started mowing lawns? Actually go a little bit deeper. So that's kind of the goal. Last week we had Liz on. We had Brian. We'll probably have Lee and a few other people on the show. So I have no idea what he's going to say. The objective here is twofold. Number one, to stump me with a question. And number two, to get more views than Liz did on her interview. So make sure you press the like button, share this video, and without any further delay, go ahead and kick it off, Brian. Maybe before you get started with your questions, kind of share a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got started with Augusta. Kind of what you do too, because you're kind of the main trainer at Command.
Sure. Yeah. So I've done customer service for multiple other businesses throughout the years. I worked at a call center in Colorado for a long time. I did tech support. I did escalations or de-escalations, I should say. So when the customer calls and says, let me speak to a manager, and they go, let me put you on hold for a second.
You're that guy.
And they transfer your call, and they go, this is Brian. He's my manager. He'll take it from here. I took that call all day. I got that call all day long. So I just, my specialty was de-escalating people and just trying to calm them down a little bit, explain to them, hey, it's not the end of the world. We'll do what we can to make it right. I'm sorry you're having a bad experience. Let's see what we can do. Maybe I could send you a stuffed animal and a T-shirt and some kind of concession and make your life a little bit better. So we did that for a while, and I worked a few other customer service jobs as well, but I've worked a lot of frontline jobs, mostly phone support. And I found my way into Augusta as things were really starting to take off. And there was a need at the Command Center. I jumped on it.
Spring rush last year.
I jumped on it and I got involved, and it was awesome.
Cool. Well, let's jump into it. Hard-hitting questions with Brian. Here we go.
All right. I'm actually going to start off with some pretty
softball questions.
Pretty soft questions here, and I'll tell the people I do watch Mike's videos, and I've watched a few of them. I haven't watched every single video he has, but I've seen most of them. But I tried to ask questions that I didn't know the answer to already.
Cool.
And I think maybe some people will know some of these answers, but I don't. So I wanted to know, we all know that you started mowing lawns with your brother when you were younger. We know you have some other jobs as well. Some people know that you worked at a gym and were a personal trainer as well. I was curious, what other kind of jobs did you have, and what was your experiences like? Did you like working for someone else? What were some big takeaways from other jobs you had besides lawn care and working for yourself?
Yeah, so my very, very first actual paid job was working for a blueberry farm, and they also did beekeeping just down the street from us. We used to live in the country when I was younger. So that was when I was 8 years old. So that was technically my first paid position. And that was kind of the first per hour job. I'd always worked around construction sites, even at 5, 6, 7, just trying to make, we'd pick up nails. I'd pick up rocks around job sites. But really the first paid position was a blueberry farm, and then they did beekeeping as well. And I really actually enjoyed the beekeeping and really fell in love with honey, and the whole process of making it was actually pretty cool. But that was when I was really young. Even as I was doing the lawn care thing, I actually was a insurance agent for State Farm. So I did the whole dressing up as the State Farm bear, the whole 9 yards. And it's funny because I could only sell certain types of insurance. I couldn't sell life insurance because I was under 18. So I actually had to write to the Washington State Insurance Commissioner just to get my license to sell property and casualty, which is house, rental insurance, car insurance, etc. But yeah, I did that whole thing, and it was fun, and I learned a lot. I also did another sales position, and these are both stints of 6 to 8 months, just part-time while I was doing the lawn care thing. I also sold credit card processing. So it was a company called Smart Choice Payments. I think they got bought out by now. But basically selling card processing from different retailers. So they'd set up all these appointments with me every hour, kind of like doing estimates. But you'd go in there, you get statements of what they're paying on credit processing now, and then you have to figure out what you could save them on, and then you'd have to try to sell them, trying to get them on different credit card processing.
So I'm curious, as an employee, Mike Andes as an employee, what was that experience like for you? Did you like having some direction, some guidance? Did you like a little bit of a, like structure, or did you kind of just wish like, I wish I could do it my own way because I feel like I could do something better? What was your experience working beneath somebody else?
I actually didn't feel like that. Like, I know some people are like, oh, I could never work for, I didn't feel like, I felt like I was a good employee. And I think the thing that I thought about a lot though was like, especially with the gym, because that was my first real like full-time, really enjoyed. I was there for several years as a personal trainer. And so every time I went into work though, I would always ask myself like, if I own this place, what would I do? And so I really started, like, I thought I was a pretty good employee. I wasn't the type of guy, like, I was only a business owner, like, that's all in my mind. I wasn't really like that. Like, I knew I loved business and stuff like that, but because I was going the medical field, and that was my goal, like, my whole teenage, in school career in college, it wasn't in my mind actually to have a business. So, like, even though that, I think that some of those skills were there, it was a matter of, I was going to medical school, so I had to get a job. And so I thought I was a pretty good employee. You'd have to talk to my manager and stuff, but I definitely felt like when I would go to places, the thing that would be annoying is if I had an idea and it was not even if I voiced it, wasn't even like addressed. Like, it was just like went into the ether. Like the credit card processing and the insurance. It was like, I had ideas for marketing and like how we could do this better. And I was like, no, like this is the way we've done it for like 50 years. Because State Farm, like, we know what we're doing. I'm like, yeah, you probably do, but like, at least give me why this won't work, or let me go test it out. So sometimes that was a little bit constricting, I guess. But
yeah, feeling like your feedback was going nowhere.
Yeah, or at least just tell me why it's not going to work. Like, I don't mind if it's a bad idea. Like, but if I have an idea, I'd like to know whether it's good or bad, or test it. And maybe it's good. Maybe I'm just lucky. So
you kind of wanted to know the why behind the systems.
Yeah, or even just be able to test the ideas that I had, right?
Totally.
And so I love marketing, I love sales, and that's why like insurance I did half decent on, and then I did half decent in the credit card processing. I like talking to business owners. That was a lot of fun. I kind of looked at it as almost like shadowing. Like, I would shadow for the medical field, like doctors and stuff like that. But when I did the credit card processing, I got to go into like all sorts of restaurants and salons and like every single retail establishment office you could possibly think of. Taxi services. I got to see their profit and loss statements.
Oh, wow.
So I literally probably saw hundreds, if not thousands of P&Ls from industries all over the place. And I love that. That was like literally like shadowing in entrepreneurship for me. I didn't realize at the time, because again, I still thought I was going to go to medical school. I thought this was like, hey, a short-term sales gig that I'm good at, I can make good money on, and then move on. But that was pretty cool. Looking back on it now, I haven't even thought about that until right now. that was like the fact that I saw profit and loss statements and like statement of cash flows and balance sheets from all these different industries was actually kind of a cool experience.
Yeah, you were kind of getting a peek behind the curtain early on.
Yeah, dude, it's like crazy because like the way that I was strictly sales and I didn't have to do the first part, which was setting up the appointment. Like that's the hardest sales position, just setting up the appointment. I already had a confirmed appointment come in. Like, I was the closer, right? So. But when I came in, they had to, like the people who pre-qualified them made sure they had their bank statements, made sure they had their profit and loss statement, their balance sheet, like the whole nine. So when I came in, like, I got to see the whole financial snapshot of their business. And it's cool because I like at least a few hundred in our local community of businesses. Like, I'll still go and go to a restaurant and like, I'll know the owner, kind of know where they're at financially. Like, it's kind of fun. So it was a cool experience.
Awesome. Another thing I was kind of wondering was, why not just work for someone else? Like most of us are doing, like 90% or, most Americans are just working for someone else. Why not keep up with that? At what point were you like, I've got a plan and I want to do my own thing. Why not just get a job and grind?
Yeah. Like, honestly, it is somewhat a necessity starting out because like I decided, hey, I'm not going to go to medical school. I'm not going to do that. And it's like the only thing at that moment, because I had already just kind of like started to go part-time with the personal training thing at the gym. And I didn't really want to do that like full-time, long-term, like, because I felt like I had more skills beyond just a personal trainer, because I had basically done all sorts of like surgeries by that point and everything in Africa. So like personal training was like just like paying the bills while I was going through school. So I didn't want to do that full-time. The only other skill I had was mowing lawns. Like, if you look at me when I was 18, like basically when I dropped out of college, I don't really have a lot of really useful skills outside of medicine and like biology and chemistry. So like, what am I going to go do? So honestly, out of necessity, I was like, oh, I got time. Like, I'm just going to start my lawn care business thing, I guess. And at the time, the owner of the gym, Anthony, I was like, man, I love golf. Like, why don't I start this thing called Augusta Lawn Care, and we'll dress up in these like the white caddy suits, and that'll be like our uniform. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. And so I'm like, oh, let's go. So that's why I started. It wasn't like this grand vision of what I wanted to do in life. It was never that way, because I truly believed until literally 18 years old that I was going to become a medical doctor. Like, that's the only thing I had in my brain, and reading books and going to classes and the whole nine. So starting a business was not like the thing for me, even though I was the guy, selling golf balls that were in the water, selling candy at school, all that stuff. That was all throughout. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to understand that I hear your explanation, but I refuse to accept it because most of us at age 18, we didn't have a resume built out. We didn't have job experience, life experience. And so to say like, hey, I just, all I knew how to do was lawn care. And so I knew that's what I had to do. The people I hear on the comments are saying like, I can't work for somebody else. That's not you. You were fine working for somebody else. Why not just build your resume and just work on finding another job in some other field and building off that? Why not do that?
Well, like, I didn't have parents or like a mentor that was like, you got to be a business owner. Like, it's the best thing in the world. And I really hadn't tapped into like social media or YouTube or anything like that at that point in terms of business. So it definitely wasn't like, oh, I've got to do this thing. I really felt even a couple years into starting my business, I would potentially still become an executive at another company. Cause I went after finishing medical school, cause I'd always thought like getting out of kind of my family's financial issues was going to be going to school. And so being that I was 18 years old, still really young, but had my bachelor's degree, I was like, well, the next natural step is I should go get my master's because I don't know what I'm doing. So I figured, hey, I'll get my MBA, my master's in business administration at night, and I'll do this lawn care thing on the side. And then during the mornings, I'll do the training thing. So I was kind of doing all three. And I still got offers to work at Amazon, Boeing, and in Microsoft because they're close to us. And so they'd come up and, basically just pitch everyone in the class to work for them, because the evening class, you had to have experience of some sort. So fortunately, I could say like I had years of business experience because of the lawn care thing, and I actually had an entity structure that I could say, hey, this is an LLC and all the rest of it. So I was able to get in the program that typically all of them were older. They either had businesses or they were already executives. So that was pretty cool. But I already had job offers. Like, I was considering like going and doing something else for someone else. I think I would have been a good employee. I do believe that. And I don't think that like I could only be a business owner. I think now it'd probably be difficult to go back. Very difficult, I think, to like have to work with someone that I hated, someone that I didn't get along with, or not have my ideas heard or at least acted on or told, give me some feedback on my ideas. That would be painful. But I think I'd be a good employee, man. I really do.
I think so too. And I think if Amazon or Boeing came up to most people, they'd be like, yes, this is a dream job. Yeah. And when those people came down and talked to you, you were like, I'm just going to keep grinding and do the lawn care thing.
Yeah. At the point though, like as I was doing the MBA and they would come in and do their presentations, and then I would look at the salaries, because you can see the salaries of like your professors, right? If you go onto the website for the college and see what they're offering. So I was like, man, doing this lawn care thing now, I'm making more than my professors, and like what they're offering me to do these jobs, like, man, I could make that just mowing lawns. Like, why would I move down to Seattle? Like, I have my family up here. I'm still young, still living at my parents. So it's like, well, why would I move down there? And so I just kept doing the lawn care thing. By the second year of the MBA, it was very clear to me that like, I was going to make more money, and like, I loved this business thing. And so I kept going.
Gotcha. So you ran the numbers and you realized that what you were doing was totally fine, if not better.
Yeah, like I remember the college has on their website for the MBA program, the evening MBA, EMBA it's called, they have a graph, a projection of incomes of students that graduate from the program. And so I looked at that like literally like every few weeks leading up to when I decided to leave school. And just go all in. And it was like, man, like I'm already making more than this. I'm just doing lawn care on the side. What if I could just go full time and cancel this? So it was, obviously I'd already gone through the transition point of getting out of medical school, which is, a big decision. But then going out of the MBA and going into like full time mowing lawns instead of going and getting a career was another big decision. But I was like, look, the money, it started to make a lot of sense, because that was my second year. We did almost $200,000 in revenue, and it was just me and one employee. So like I was making pretty good money. And so that's why I went the next year, we almost tripled in revenues, because I went all in. We're going to go full time. I'm not doing the training thing anymore. We're just going to go all in.
But you're still doing Anytime Fitness. You're still doing personal training and all that as well.
Until the end of the second year, yeah.
So what pans out with so I think most of us know that you owned a Anytime Fitness franchise. So how does that come to be? How did you get the capital from that? Did you just, the lawn care thing's doing well, I'm just going to buy an Anytime Fit? How did that pan out?
Yeah, so Anthony, the previous owner, he came out of the Navy and was able to get some really good franchise agreements with Anytime Fitness back when they only had 1,000 or 2,000 clubs. Now they have like 5,000. They're a lot larger. But he got some really good deals. He had like 5 or 6 locations, I think up to 7. And so I hadn't really talked to him for a couple years because I left, started working in Augusta specifically, and I started rolling around this idea of franchising. And so one day I get a notification, because I have a notification. Any business in Whatcom County that goes for sale, I get a notification. And so it literally went up, and then the next second I called him, literally within 1 minute. I was standing in a nursery, Van Wintergren's nursery on Portal Way in Blaine, standing in the checkout, and it comes in, and I immediately called him. And he picked up, he's like, I expected to hear from you, but not that fast. That was his first line to me. And I said, yeah, I want to buy it. I said, and he's like, we're going to make it happen. And I'm like, I don't know if I have enough money. He's like, we're going to make it happen. And that was just the way Anthony was. I still see a lot of characteristics from him in the way he led and was a manager and an owner in what I do. Because he was kind of my first boss figure in my mind. And so, but when he's like, yeah, we're going to make it happen, we're going to make it work. So basically what he kind of did is he did not lend me the money to do the down payment, because you need 10% down. So I bought it for $500,000. So you got to put $50,000 down. I had 50,000, but it would have taken all of my cash reserves. And so I was just honest with him, and he's like, hey, what we'll do is you pay that, and I know you're going to be really low, and we'll just make sure that we have what's called the remit, or the dues for an entire month of membership will come out the next day when you take ownership. So you'll be able to kind of get your cash reserves back. And so, we made it work. So yeah, I purchased that, and I still own it today. I have a general manager now that does some profit sharing, because I was going to sell it to them, but it didn't work out with their financing. So I just made the general manager, and it's still running today.
Is that the inspiration to do the franchise with the lawn care, or was that just a coincidence?
It was flipped, right? So I knew at that point, I was like, hey, somewhere down the road, I wasn't expecting within a few years. I was expecting 5 or 10 years down the road to franchise Augusta. I said, hey, the year before I bought it, it was the Entrepreneur magazine ranked it #1 franchise out of every franchise available. So I'm like, look, if I can learn from the best here and go to their training, see what kind of support they give, how they do their back end dashboard and all the rest of it, I'll have a good understanding of how we can set ours up and learn from the best. Because there's plenty of really bad franchises out there. And so I had already worked in the system, knew their systems, but to actually then see the behind the scenes and how they ran from a franchisor perspective, which is a completely different business than landscaping, is the franchising side of things. So being able to learn that from them, and honestly, as I look back on it, it gives me confidence when, right now, you want to do everything possible for the franchisees, and you want to support them as much as you possibly can. You want to give back to them as much as you can. You want to give them resources and discounts and all the rest of it. But you could literally just give and give and give until you would just lose every penny. You would never be able to make it profitable. And so what is actually the most helpful thing with Anytime Fitness is, yes, learning their training and their systems and procedures and how they interacted and supported. But honestly, the level of support that they gave, I can benchmark against, knowing that they're leading in the industry versus what we give. And I feel like we do a much, much better job in terms of support one-on-one with the franchisees. So it gives me a little bit of confidence, because otherwise I would just not know what the standard is. Am I supposed to literally have every single one of them that can text me all night long? Am I supposed to hop on a call every single second they I haven't talked to someone for Anytime Fitness for over 2 years. And that's the level of support that I've got. And I've not been to any conferences. And I feel very disassociated with them. And so I know that's a negative. That's something I can learn from the negative side from them being a franchisor, even though they're really, really successful. Just how to support the franchisees more.
Wow. So you knew before you even joined Anytime Fitness that you were going to franchise this whole Augusta thing.
Yeah, I knew eventually. I had already said at the team meetings that was the goal. I had already told at offsite meetings, hey, we're going to franchise this thing, and we're going to get to 100 locations and all that stuff. I just didn't expect it as fast as we ended up doing it. And I mostly did it quickly because I knew that people like Lee and Liz wouldn't stick around if I just had one location. Their level of talent would just, they would stay with me for a couple more years and I'd lose them. Not because they were unloyal or anything, or I couldn't pay them enough. It was just a matter of like they needed harder things to work on. And so I wanted very badly, the best thing in my mind of being self-employed is the ability to choose who you work with and be able to hire and work with people you want to. And I wanted to work with highly skilled and people that really wanted to get ahead and were really, really good at their job. And I didn't want to work with just like, people just coming in and out every 3 months. Like I wanted to work with people that are really good and create a place where they could grow into. And so that's when we eventually pulled the trigger faster than we thought. But going into Anytime Fitness, the main reason why was to get the experience and skill. There was no desire to own a gym. At the time, being younger, it was definitely like kind of an ego thing at first, but now it's like, it's not an inconvenience, but it's more a matter of like, I've got what I need from the club. And that's why I was going to sell it earlier this year and ended up just basically having a manager so I can show up once a week for 15 minutes. But yeah, it was definitely the goal for the gym was to learn the franchise model.
So what are people around you, like your friends, your family, your coworker, what are they thinking when you're shelling out all of your capital into buying an Anytime Fitness when you're trying to run another business already? Are they supporting you? And how important was their support or lack of support to you?
I know it's like what people always say, like they don't care what other people think, but like I had crossed that bridge already, right? Because I had to like drop out of medical school, which my entire family, friends, coworkers, peers had always thought that's what I was going to become. So for me to drop out of that, I basically kicked everyone's like thoughts of me in the face. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go mow lawns instead of becoming a surgeon. What everyone had thought of me for 5-6 years, because they knew I was ahead in school. They knew I started college really young. Like that was the thing. And I was absorbed in it. So like everywhere I went, like I was the kid with like skeletons and muscle systems on my wall and watching surgeries. It was like my pastime. So, I had already got past that. Like, what do people think about me and what do they think about my decisions? And my parents are incredible when it comes to, they never put pressure on me to do anything, including going to school young. They specifically actually sat me down like, hey, just so you know, we're not pressuring you to go to school young. You do not need to do this. Like if you want to, that's up to you, but we are not pressuring. And they never did, ever. And we never even talked about it. Like it wasn't even a big thing that I was going to school really young. Like now I think like if I was a parent and my kid was 13 going to college, I'd be like, I want to know what they did every single day and make sure they were safe. And like, we never even talked about it. It was super normal. I never felt weird because that's just how they operated. So when it came to the business stuff, like even to this day, they kind of know like, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. And, I don't care. Like I care about them, but I don't care about what they think. I don't care what anybody thinks when it comes to the decisions and it comes to business. I have to live with the decisions. And so, I really don't care what people think. And at the first, when people give their opinions, their goal is usually to help you. They love you and they just want to give their opinions and help you do better. But what they have to realize is that for someone that has goals and ambitions and dreams, like the last thing, if you actually love them, is to try to cap those things. Like you'd rather let them run and get hurt than just box them up or chain them down. And so my parents, hats off to them. They've never questioned. They've like, hey, we support you. And my mom's always a little more conservative, like, honey, don't make sure you spend too much money. How much debt are you in? Like, are you sure you can do all of this? But they were just phenomenal parents, honestly. And that's where I think it was built into me, just not really care what other people think. And just once I had a decision, I was just going to go for it. And people think that's good. Some people thought I was really smart when I was going to college. Other people thought I was, I was losing out my childhood and whatever. And honestly, I spent less time in school than probably most high schoolers did during the same age, right? Because I was going to college. I'd go to college for like 3 or 4 hours a day. I wasn't losing my childhood. I would go play golf for like 4 hours a day. And work out and everything. So people just have their own opinions, whatever. But after they see that you don't care, they stop saying stuff. And that's a great spot to be because they know they can't penetrate. And so it takes a while to get there. But yeah.
Okay, that's an awesome answer. I'm going to shift gears actually and kind of talk about P4P for a little bit.
Cool.
So I used to work I was a bicycle mechanic for a long time in my younger years.
Really?
And, yeah, I actually worked at a shop and we got paid a piece rate.
Okay, yeah.
Or piecework, I think it was called.
Yep.
So you've heard of it.
Yep. So is it like so if you were fixing a bike, would it be like, hey, if you do the disc brakes, you get $10? Is it like that?
Sort of.
Or just like a percentage of what you build out to the customer?
It's not a percentage, it's a flat rate. So
per service.
You got a base wage and it was I think at the time I was making like $3 base wage.
Well, let's go.
$3 an hour base wage. But then if you fixed a flat tire, you got 50 cents. And if you did a tune-up, you got $5. And that was just added on throughout the day. So the more work you got done, you just got this on top of it. So it wasn't exactly what P4P is, because it wasn't an either or. It was you were going to get your $3 an hour, but you could make more by getting more stuff done.
Got it.
So I was wondering if you had heard of this, if you had an opinion about this, if this shaped your P4P system, or
yeah, P4P is not new, right? Like everyone's like, you're trying to make it like you made. I'm not. Like it's not new. Piecework, piece rate, pay for performance, or pay, like performance pay is a term most people knew already. What P4P though is specifically for home improvement businesses that bill by the budgeted hour, right? When you sell time, and so like for example, at the bike shop, they probably would pay someone, if someone would pay by the service, right? A little more difficult to implement like what we call P4P because it's not per time, right? Whereas if they were charging by the hour to the customer, this P4P would probably make more sense. In home improvement, most of the time, our jobs revolve around some sort of budgeted hours. Even if you have a flat rate, you're baking in a certain number of hours on that job. And so if the crew can get done more efficiently, there's more profit to be had and it can be shared with the employees. And so it's not new. I did not make it up. I read lots and lots, just about every single book you can possibly put your hand on about piece rate, about piecework, about any other term similar to P4P. I've read it. But there was never a system or software or technology that would make that useful and simple for us to be able to calculate with precision less than 1 minute per day per employee out in the field. And that's what we were going for. And so that's why we created the software and everything. But P4P is not new. It's not exciting. It's nothing revolutionary about it. It's just how do we simplify it for home improvement businesses and then create software to make it where it doesn't take lots of time to calculate. Because we were doing, Lonnie made all sorts of Excel spreadsheets and we used that for years before we actually did the software.
So when I worked at that shop, working for piece rate, getting paid like that, first of all, most of the people who worked there didn't make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And it was because it was all college guys, right? So let's be real. But, the people who were making good money were the people who were doing the worst work because there was lots of corner cutting because they were incentivized to get stuff done quickly. And the people who took the time and just tweaked the brake a little bit better and just centered things a little bit more and just really cleaned the bike and oiled it and did just all the stuff you're supposed to do and didn't cut the corners, those people were probably making the least next to the lazy people. The lazy people and the detail-oriented people made the least. But the people in the middle who were just like, let's get it done, it doesn't have to be perfect, get it close, those people were doing the best. And I wonder if you have some opinion about how you make sure that people on P4P are doing the customer service stuff and going above and beyond and like making sure that they're taking care of the customers. Is there a way that you've kind of thought about that and made sure that that's not getting missed?
Yeah, first off, I think people assume right off the bat that if you go switch off of hourly and go to P4P, that people are going to go faster and they're going to cut corners. And if someone's money motivated, that is true. However, if someone does not have an eye for detail or they just simply do not care about the customer, if they're on hourly, they're going to do the same exact thing. So it's about training and them finding a person that cares for the customer is the first step. Because I don't care if you're getting paid by the hour, you're just going to take longer and not grease the chain. You're still just going to take longer and not do those finer details for the customer. You're not doing that for money, whether you're on hourly or P4P. You're doing that for the customer. And so that would be my first thing, because a lot of people go to quality as the reason why they can't switch to pay for performance. Like, oh, well, everyone's just going to go fast and break things and mess stuff up and put the bike chain on backwards or whatever it might be. And but you do have to have checks and balances for the people who are money motivated and are going to try to cut corners. And that's why quality has to be a part of that, whether it be, for a bike shop, that's going to be harder because a mess up on a bike shop could potentially mean someone getting hurt. But more likely, it's the small things like not greasing the chain that will kind of slide through the cracks and not get detected. And no one's going to complain about it necessarily. It's just because it's going above and beyond. So that's where training is going to come into play when it comes to the home improvement business, but also incentivize the opposite, which is when people do go above and beyond, incentivize it, build it into the program. So locally, if someone gets a 5-star review on Google and they were on the job, they get $50 cash. Last week, we gave $260 at one of our team meetings in cash to one person because they got a couple online reviews, also incentivizing them to get new customers. So they talked to the neighbors, they got information. So how do I incentivize the opposite? So instead of like concerning so much about the quality side, which is important, and we have checks and balances for that in P4P, but also like, what about for the person who does actually care about the customer? How do I make sure that they get compensated for that? Because that's not a normal behavior for us to really care about the customer and make sure they grease the chain and ask them about how they were doing on the trails last week. Like that's not innate in most employees.
Awesome. So you think, a part I'm pulling away from that is that training is really, really essential. Making sure that they're trained properly and understand quality matters is really important.
Training and just like some things you can't teach or train, and that is caring for a customer, right? Like sometimes people just cannot be trained that. Like they simply do not care about anyone outside of their, the 3 feet around them. And so to talk to someone who's a stranger and care about their landscaping, or talk to some Joe Blow walking into a bike shop that you've never met, like there's a certain level of you cannot train that to care for this person and want to help them and make them happy. And a lot of times those people just have not had customer service experience. But it's just amazing to me. And we were talking about on the franchisees group. It's like, this, it's not about necessarily whether or not P4P works or not. We know it does, but it's finding someone who actually wants to make more money and actually cares for the customer to make sure they do a good job while they're working efficiently. So that's sometimes a challenge, just finding the people. The right person, though, inside of P4P will love it. The wrong person inside of P4P will try to take advantage of cutting corners. You'll have to fire them. Or 2, they will simply not care about making money. They will not be money motivated, and they'll never make more than they would otherwise on hourly. So what you're going to do is hopefully attract the highest performers because they enjoy and thrive in an environment where they get paid more the harder they work and the more efficiently and more highest quality that they can produce. And their compensation is tied to that.
What do you say to employees who are interested in getting their base pay raised in P4P? So they get hired on at their hourly, they're making P4P, and they say, I need an increase in base pay. Is there ever a reason why you should do that? And what would be the pros and cons of doing that?
Yeah, so base pay in my mind is, unfortunately, and I'll get a lot of flack on the comments for this one, by raising base pay, all you're doing is giving more money to your lowest performers. By moving the base pay, you're not giving more money to your highest performers. You're giving it to the lowest performers. So when you take that step back and realize that, you never want to touch base pay if you can possibly do it. Now, the reason you have to have base pay be competitive is because when a prospective employee is wanting to apply, that's the thing they're looking at because they're not used to what P4P means, and most entry level, especially laborers, are simply looking at what's dollars per hour. So unfortunately, like in the perfect world, we would be able to pay more in P4P to our highest performers if there was like no base pay. It was just straight P4P. We would lose a lot of the lowest performers though very quickly, and we'd give more money to the highest performers. But you can't do that because you're never going to be able to track them in. Even a good employee, if they're entry level and a hard worker and could really crush it on P4P, won't join your company if there's not the dependability of a paycheck. And ultimately, if they were so risk tolerant that they would take 100% commission on P4P without a base pay, they'd just go start their own business. They'd be an entrepreneur. So if you're actually trying to attract employees, they need a certain level of dependability and confidence knowing they're going to get a paycheck and they at least pay their bills. And so you have to have it high enough to attract talent, but low enough to with the delta between what they make on P4P and what they're making on base pay is substantial enough. If it's like $1 an hour, it's like $80 a paycheck. Am I really going to push a little harder? Am I going to skip the second smoke break? Am I going to not make sure I'm not on my phone all day long? Probably not for $80. But if the delta between that is $500, and instead of making $17 or $18 an hour on base, I'm making $24, $25 on P4P, you better believe they're going to be looking at their notes the night before, making sure they're more efficient, making sure that the person they're working with is also efficient by training them up. And so it just ultimately aligns the goals of the employee and the employer, and that is be efficient, get things done, but also you need to have a high enough quality to where you're not going to get a callback and you're not going to have a customer that's complaining. And then to make sure that there's not the do as good as we can to get by, we incentivize the complete opposite, which is when someone goes above and beyond, they get compensated well for that.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the only reason to have a high base pay is to attract new talent, really. I'm hearing almost no argument why you would, for existing employees, change the base pay. If anything, that'd be detrimental. I don't hear any pros to why you would raise base pay for somebody who's been with you.
Aside from attracting new talent, there is no benefit in my mind. Since we started P4P, it's been like, probably 4 or 5 years at the local shop. We have not raised base pay since. Now, the average wage has gone up more than 50%, though. And so the challenging part is just getting people in the door. High performers, though, once they're there, they figure out the system, usually after 3 to 6 months, they can make way more. There's someone who made over $30 an hour last week mowing lawns, right? And so, but yeah, the downside is attracting talent, getting them in the door when you have a lower base pay. And if someone came to me like, I want a raise, I would just be like, hey, look, first of all, I have never had someone ask me for a raise, entry-level position on P4P. Now, when you're paying a manager, if they don't have the opportunity to make P4P because they're doing non-revenue producing tasks, that's when you're gonna have to figure out wage increases or bonuses or whatever. But when it comes to entry-level employees, I look and say, hey, look, Mr. Jones, that's a customer. Let's just say Bob. Bob comes to me, he's like, I want a raise. I need more money. My family's going through X, Y, and Z. I say, hey, look, last pay period, you earn $19.50 per hour. Now, Joe over here, he earned $27.50 per hour. Maybe go talk to Joe and ask him what you can do to be more efficient. And by the way, Joe's done that for the past 4 months consistently. He's never hit base pay. Maybe you go learn with him. Maybe we'll team you up with him and just watch how he performs. Watch how when he gets to work, he jumps right in his truck. When he gets to a job site, he has a plan already. He's not just walking around for 20 minutes, lollygagging and figuring out what equipment he forgot back at the shop. So those are the type of activities that you should be doing. And maybe, hey, by the way, here's some YouTube videos. These might make you more efficient too. How to cut trimmer line, how to spool it faster, how to edge correctly. These are all things that you can do to make more money. And so to this day, I've never had a field worker ask for more base pay because they know what my response is. And it's, hey, look, on the leaderboard inside p4psoftware.com, you can see how much everyone's making per hour. See that 27, 28, 29? That can be you. Just go figure out what they're doing differently than you. That's what I would say if someone approached me about base pay being increased.
Awesome. So I'm Bob in this scenario, and and you're Joe.
Yes.
And I come to you and I say, hey Joe, I'm struggling. Times are tough. My kid's in the hospital. I need more money. What are you doing? How can I do it? As Joe, has Joe been pretty helpful to Bob, or have you found that Joe's just like, I'm not giving you my secret sauce. This is my.
I think that was my concern at the beginning too, because P4P is very individualistic, right? And I was like, man, it's gonna really hurt the team culture and things like that. But if Joe is working with Bob, it is in Joe's best interest to make sure Bob works efficiently because they're splitting P4P. So if I put them together on a route or on a project, he's going to get trained via osmosis, and Joe is going to want Bob to work faster and be more efficient. So he's not going to hold anything back because now how hard and fast and efficiently Bob works is going to affect Joe's pay. If Joe's a high performer, he doesn't want to cut because he's now working with Bob. So he's going to make sure Bob has all the skills he has to make sure he's efficient.
But then Joe's like, why do I always get stuck with the Bobs of the team? Because I feel like the boss is penalizing me for being the best.
That's where two things. One, if someone was high performing, they said that, I'd say, look, you learn how to be really efficient at doing X, Y, and Z work, job, physical work. The next step in your career is figuring out how to take what you know and duplicate that and replicate that to other people. That's what's going to put you for promotion. That's what's going to make you a manager type level of talent, is to be able to take what you know and give that to someone else. How do you take Bob and make him from 19 to 24? If you can figure that out, you become much more valuable to a company because you can replicate yourself. You can only be one great all-star. But if you're able to figure out and have the skill to train other people how to do that, you become infinitely more valuable to the company. And when there's a promotion, that's the person who will get it, because that person they might be able to make $10 per hour above base pay for the company by themselves. But if they can train 10 other people how to do $5 more per hour above base pay, that's now $50 of value to the business. They'll get promoted.
Awesome. Great answer. Checking my notes and switching gears, I have some questions just about general business stuff here. Mm-hmm. What's more important to you, customer service or marketing?
From a business owner's perspective?
Yeah, just general business question.
Oh man, I'm going to get some hate for this. I think marketing.
Why?
The reason is because you can't have customer service without having a customer. And so if you don't have any customers, you don't get any customers if you don't have good marketing. And so I can't, like, everyone's like, I gotta have the best service in the world. And I'm gonna, let's just say you're a doctor, right? Like, I'm the best doctor in the entire world. Okay, great. But you only have one patient every single month. You're only gonna help 12 people in the entire year. You can be the best doctor, the best at what you do, but you're only gonna get 12. And you can refine the processes and make it incredible when they come in. There's like a puff of air and all the rest of it. You can make it perfect, but you're only gonna help 12 people. I'd rather focus on getting 1,000 customers, and maybe I lose 10 of them because they're not happy with my service. But the net out is I still help 990 people. And so if I'm going to focus so much on customer service that it limits the impact that I can have in terms of volume of people, that's where I start to question it. So it's not to say that customer service is not important, but you must have marketing to have the volume to where customer service matters. And if you actually look at impact for your business on a community, creating jobs, helping, if you actually believe that your service is better than the competition and you're doing a service to the customers, the best form of customer service is doing business with them. If you actually believe you mow lawns better than Joe Blow down the street, the best form of service you can do is make sure he doesn't go with Joe Blow and he goes with you. So getting a customer comes prior, not as superior, but in terms of just the what's the word? The sequence. The sequence of it is important. You're going to get the customer in order to have great customer service. You can have great customer service that will never get you good customers if you don't have marketing. So you get marketing first, get customers, then focus on customer service, and then that will be a compounding effect. But you cannot have great customer service and expect that randomly you're going to get customers without great marketing, which is going to tell the message of your great customer service to potential customers.
But isn't customer service the basis of referrals, and that ends up being its own marketing?
True. However, the question is, like, it is a form of marketing. You're exactly right. Like, referrals is a form of marketing. So it's just a matter of, I've still got to tell a good marketing. When we say marketing, I think story. So I've still got to tell a good story to my customer in order for you to refer to someone else. If I don't have a good logo, if I don't have a good brand, if I don't have a good website for them to refer someone else to, well, again, what's the point of the referral? Yeah, this guy mows my lawn, and I'm forgetting his name. I'll try to remember to, tell him to call you or something. Like, that's not good marketing, right? Good marketing is I have a brand, I have a great website, I have a logo, I have a story that I've told the customer, whether it be through the brand name, whether it be from my website, whether it be from my uniforms, my professionalism, to where now I'm worthy of a referral. And when they do that, it actually converts. And so, it's a chicken and egg game. Like, I cannot have customer service without customers. So get the customers, then get maniacal about customer service. Everyone talks about Amazon and they say, how Jeff Bezos was all about the customer. Like, let's just rewind the tape a bit and realize that for the first 10 years, they lost money like crazy. And the only thing he cared about was getting more customers. He did not care about customer service. He cared about how do we get as many books in the hands of our customers as possible. And if we got to take a loss on that, we will. Because we only care about getting more customers. Now, then we have something to figure out in terms of customer service. But you've got to have the marketing right before. It's not any better. It has to be right before in terms of the sequence of events.
All right, this is kind of a generic question, but it's on my mind here. When have you, I don't want an Augusta example here, just in general. When have you seen leadership and been really impressed with it? And what stood out to you about this great leadership experience?
Okay, so I'll go broad and then I'll go more narrow. So I'd say what inspired me from a leadership broadly is whenever there's battle and the leader runs toward it. That is, in my mind, the epitome, and it will cover a lot of mistakes that the leader makes, is that when there's trouble, they run towards it instead of running away from it. You can think all sorts of negative things about a president, about a congressperson, about a business owner, about any sort of leader, your parent, whatever it might be, your spouse, any sort of form of leadership. You can think of a lot of negative things and see all their weaknesses. But if in the time of battle, i.e. bad things happening, they run towards it and they're with you, that's the main thing. And so, you can look at things like 9/11 when it happened, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you stood up and cheered when George Bush walked out in New York for the Yankees game and threw out the first pitch. Because at that moment, it didn't care. That was our leader, and he stood up and he said something. And there's a reason why presidents stand up after big events like that and talk immediately as fast as possible to the public. And yes, it's a PR stunt, but the reason is because leadership, you've got to be visible in a time of battle. You got to be visible in a time when there's conflict. And so leadership, in my mind, is determined by the person that runs towards battle instead of running away from it. And so when I zero down on business leadership, I look at the one that always pops into my mind immediately is Elon Musk on the factory floor during 2015, 16, 17, when no one thought they were going to take over the world. Or all this now is all like, oh yeah, they're such a great company. Like back then, they were the most shorted stock in the country, and they were losing money. And he just had flushed all his money down the toilet that he just got from PayPal, and he's out on the floor working on the cars on the factory floor. That to me is why over the past 5 to 10 years, you've seen their employees galvanize and work the crazy hours because they know, okay, if our leader can do it, we can do it. And so if our leader is willing to run towards battle, when there's stuff that goes on, it's going to happen in every organization, whether it be political, family, business, whatever it is, whoever runs towards battle, in my mind, is the leader. And if you go way back to like caveman days, like the leader was expected, like, hey, we are going to admonish you. We're going to respect you. You're usually going to be rich. You're going to, back in the day, have a bunch of wives and all the rest. We're going to take care of you. But if you're our leader, when they come and fight us and there's something coming and battling us, you better be the one at the front. That was expected of them. And so when it comes to business, when it comes to politicians, everyone will hate on them getting a lot. But you have to realize their responsibility, and this is why we really hate them if they don't step up in the moment of crisis. It is their responsibility in the moment when everyone else is running to be the one at the front. And that's why they get paid. That's why people make billions and billions of dollars as the CEO of the company. Because when everything is falling apart and that the Model 3 is not working well and we're losing money, we're a few weeks away from bankruptcy, I'm on the floor and I'm sleeping inside the closet. That's Elon Musk. That's a leader. And so, that's a long answer. So
a leader quite literally leads the charge. Quite literally should be at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in times of peace is when it's actually sometimes hardest for a leader to for people to make sense in the society we live in that wants equality so badly. It's hard to make sense why the leader gets paid more. It's hard to make sense why the leader gets the perks, why the leader gets to be on TV, whatever it might be. But in a time of war is when real leadership has to be exemplified. Otherwise, the whole organization falls apart. And so anyone can lead a great company, or a great company. Anyone can lead a successful company when everything's going well. They just did an IPO, there's money, and people are getting stock options, the stock price is going up, and the economy is doing well. We just doubled in revenue. But true leadership is when that flips. And that's when you usually get to see who is really a leader, who is going to be the CEO that actually turn the company around, and then who are the people that are just along for the ride. And there's a lot of those people.
All right, so team culture is something that you talk about, you've been talking about. What is something about the team culture at Augusta that you're especially proud
of? That we don't get complacent about it, because it's never going to be what I want it to be. There's really no pride in having culture, in my opinion. It's like people are like, and I used to use the word culture too, so I'm guilty of it. But like, really think about what culture is. Like the American culture, it's built over hundreds of years, and it's hard to change. And, it's our culture in certain parts of the country or certain parts of the world to operate a certain way. And it takes decades, if not generations, to change that. So when people are like, I'm going to change the culture of the company, it's like, be careful. Like, you're trying to change something that's probably ingrained into this company and in these individuals. So somehow we think that company culture, we can like flip in a week or two. It's like, no. You're probably going to have to fire everyone, because if you want to start a new culture, good luck getting everyone to change. So in my opinion, the only thing that I can be proud of is that we're constantly trying to improve it. There's nothing really I look at and I'm like, oh, it's so great. Like, I don't get involved in I'm not a big fan of the victory laps, right? We are not where we want to be at. I don't think our culture is where I want it to be at. And it never really will probably be the point like, we nailed it. Never. And so I'm most proud of the fact that I look at it like that way. And I've always looked at it that way. And if you do that when it's really, really bad, and everyone's hating you, you won't feel as bad, because you've always been telling yourself this is not where I want it to be at, and it's not perfect, and we're trying to make it better. And when everyone's telling you it's amazing, and we got like the best place to work in Whatcom County award and all that sort of thing in 2019, you also realize like, great, that's fine, but I see all the holes still, and I still to this day still see where we can improve. So the only thing I can be proud of is that we constantly are working on it, and it's actually something I really generally do care about, and it'll never be perfect.
I wanted to talk about work-life balance. So it's no
This will be a short answer.
it's no secret that you get a lot done.
Yeah.
You get an awful lot done. How do you, Mike Andes, take care of work-life balance? And how important is that for someone who's got so much on their plate, not just you specifically, but business owners who are putting in the hours?
Yeah, like from most standards, I would have no balance whatsoever, none. And so, but being deliberate about that and knowing why I'm doing that and being okay with that and wanting that is important. Like if I really wanted to have work-life balance and that was appealing to me, like being off at a certain time, going to work at a certain time, not working on the weekends or whatever, I could do it. Like I don't need to do this anymore. Right? Like someone the other day was like, oh, you're like all this stuff, like, they're saying stupid comments. And I'm like, look, realize that if I just stopped doing all my businesses, I could live off my real estate income. Like, I don't have to do this every day. And so you have to realize I'm making the decision to do it. And that's a very liberating, and I'm very fortunate and privileged to do that. I don't have to go to work to put food on my table. Me working tomorrow is not going to make any impact on whether or not I can eat. So once you calibrate that and then realize that I am making the decision to push myself, push my body, push my brain, not get sleep, and do these things and try to run optimally throughout my day to get more and more done is my decision. I made the bed. Like I did that. So if I can't complain, you're never going to hear me talk about how tired I am or I didn't sleep last night or, I was up all night doing X, Y, and Z. Never going to happen because I made the decision. And so I don't like when people complain about it. I don't think balance is something that should be try to be a constant thing we think about. I think balance, we've so made it, and like if you're on a seesaw, what everyone's trying to figure out is how do they get on the fulcrum, right? And they're trying to balance on this fulcrum, like in the middle. You got to realize that a seesaw, how you actually make action is you get out of balance. You go from one side to the other, back and forth, back and forth. If you're trying to run, you actually are constantly falling. You're constantly out of balance in order to make progress. I think in order to make progress in any area of life, you're going to have to go out of balance for some period of time. You can't run forever. So you can't be out of balance forever. You've got to calibrate. You've got to rest. You've got to recover. But if you're going to make progress, you're going to have to push yourself and you're going to have to get out of balance. And so I'm a big believer in I go all in on one thing and I go all in on the other. It's very much like a seesaw. Like if you take the aggregate, it's in balance, but in any one moment, it's completely out of balance. Instead of trying to balance on this thing in the middle, like constantly judging, I think people just judge themselves so much based upon, I'm working too much. I should be with my family. Then there's their family. Oh my goodness, I should be doing this at work. Like I should be trying to get ahead and make more payments on my mortgage. Like they're constantly in this, like beating themselves up when it's like, look, I'm going to be at work. I'm going to be 110% at work. I'm not going to think about anything else but work. And then they maybe go home and they're like, I'm not going to think about a single thing about what happened today and about what happened at work. I'm just going to focus on my kids. Like going back and forth in my mind and going all in on whichever direction I'm in is most beneficial for me and works well for me. And so it's something that's worked well for me. And with my family, I don't check my phone if I can. When I'm working out, like I am working out like I'm gonna be training for the Olympics. If I'm in business and I'm doing business stuff, like that's all I'm thinking about. And so right now, when you look at the micro, like a day, like hey, I'm going to work and I'm with my family. I'm going to work with my family. Someone that's in a job. But then you also got to step back and realize there's going to be seasons of your life that you're going to be out of balance. And so for me, from 18 to 28, that 10-year period that I started Augusta at 18, 28 is still a couple years away, I'll be massively out of balance in the direction of business and making wealth. There will probably come a time, not saying it's at 28 or 29, but like there will come a period where I over-index towards family, wanting to get married, have kids, and all the rest of it. And I will go all in on that. But right now, I'm out of balance in the macro. But in the micro, I'm trying to stay as balanced as I possibly can be, trying to get as much sleep as I can, optimize things like that. But I don't think about balance at all.
So people who are working the hours right now, and they've got the family and they're trying to do other stuff, your advice is work hard, play hard. Be at work and be at work. And when you're at home, turn off the phone.
I don't recommend that. I think people need to figure out what works for them. That works really well for me. For other people, regardless of how much ambition you have and money you make, you still want to get off at 5 o'clock every night and have dinner at 5:30 with your kids. And that's great. You should do that. You should take what I've just said and just delete it Every single person that tries to tell you what that works for them, it's an input. It's like, hey, that works for them. Great. Maybe that works for me. Maybe I can test that out. But you've got to figure out what works for you. Just listening to me or anyone else talk about what works for them is not going to, like, every physical, mental, spiritual, and psychological person is different. So why would I listen to what works for you and think, oh, it's going to work for me? You're completely different than me. And so no one should listen to me like, oh, that's good. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense for them, but not necessarily for you. So listening to this, no one should be like, oh, I should do that. No, you should figure out what works for you. And I've found that what has worked really well for me.
As a business owner, how much like PR, community events, giving back should you strive for? Like, you know, community stuff, having a float in the family day parade, that kind of stuff. You see people doing that all the time, and that's like their marketing or just having like presence in the community. How much of that do you subscribe to?
Oh man, I could talk about this for a really long time. I never talk about this stuff. First off, I think that most people do those things out of guilt and because they think that's what they're supposed to do. They don't do it because they want to. They don't do it because they actually have a passion for it. They're doing it because like, oh, like I should be doing that. Like that is what is expected of me. Therefore I must do it. That's the first thing. I think what people are like, charity and philanthropy does not run on people that have giving hearts. It's based upon people who feel guilty for having wealth. That's what it is. They feel guilty when they see a child that's an orphan in Africa. And so they give money because they feel guilty, and it will appease that guilt knowing that they have 10 homes and 4 private jets. That's what most charity and philanthropy is built around. It is not about wanting to do good in the world. And that might just be like my tainted, twisted, jilted self thinking that, but it's just the truth. And so I think that most small business owners should get to the place where they want to give back and they actually want to make an impact, and then realize and ask yourself, like, what is the impact I want to make? And then ask yourself, what do I need to do in my business financially to make that happen? And some people are like, man, I want to build a school. I want to build an orphanage. I want to help my church do whatever. It's like, okay, great. Like, you're going to need some serious financial backing to do those things. So focus on that, right? And so I'm not a big believer, like personally, because I know how philanthropy works. So I've talked to several people that work in like the Red Cross and some other nonprofits, and they've told me all about the guilt stuff. They know how to play it. That's all their marketing is built around. They know exactly the psychology of why wealthy people give money. And I'm like, I am not going to be that person. I'm going to know from now what exactly I want to get done, where I want the money to go, and then I've got to figure out a plan to make the money to make that happen. But it's not going to be because I get wealthy and then feel guilty and then want to give the money away. All right. And so, long answer to say, I think you got to know why and what you want out of the philanthropy and giving back, whether it be for a local community, a little league game. Like, I am not going to support that little league game if it's for marketing. It's just not. It's a bad move from a marketing perspective. There's very little ROI on it. So either it's me marketing or I'm giving this money. Right. And so in my mind, it's very binary. Some people are like, well, if you do something good for everyone else and you're going to like good PR, it's like, no. I'm either giving this money away or this is a marketing move. And giving money away to people can be a marketing move, and that's just fine. But don't play it up as a PR move. Like, we have such a good giving heart for giving back to the community. Like, no, you're just copying Toms that gave one pair of shoes away for every pair that they gave. And you're doing that as a marketing stunt. You're not doing that because you care about water in Africa. And so, part of it is I've talked to the people who run these campaigns. I've also been to Africa and seen poverty and orphans and people in hurt. And they don't need some guy in New York feeling bad for them and so that he can sleep better that night giving $1 million to some charity. That's not what they need.
But why not sponsor like a kids' little league team and put Augusta on their jerseys? Why not do that?
I would do that if there was, for me, the benefit. So for example, okay, here we go. So let's say it's $1,000. That $1,000 is $1,000 regardless. It can be spent on a lot of other things. So what I have to ask myself is, where do I get the most joy and benefit and value in spending that $1,000? I can spend it on a marketing plan. I can spend it on hiring somebody. I can, buy another microphone, or I can give it to a little league. Now, what's the value of all of those transactions is what I have to ask myself. And if I don't get more than $1,000 worth in return in value, whether that be a warm, fuzzy feeling, whether it be people seeing the shirt in the back and then calling and I make $5,000 in revenue, every single transaction, regardless if it's philanthropy or buying a microphone, you are paying for value. And unfortunately, a lot of people will do the thing for the little league, not because there's marketing sense or not because they actually want to care about it, but they feel obligated to, and they feel bad about it. And I'm not going to give money away for that reason. And so people know pretty well, like are close to me, they're not going to get money if they ask for it. They're just not. Because there's not anything inside of me that gets value back in return besides guilt for not doing it.
Awesome. We know that you are very budget conscious. You've promoted the fact that you kind of live modestly, and that it makes sense to cut corners in some aspects so that you're not spending as much. We know that that's something that you promote. Is there any instances or situations where you do splash out and you do kind of get the nice thing, like, you know what, on microphones I don't cheap out, on trucks or trailers or blowers, maybe I don't cheap out there. Is there any areas where you would not cheap out and you would recommend just like getting the good stuff?
Yeah, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on where I'm at financially. Like if we're in a really good spot financially, I'm probably more inclined to buy nice microphones, knowing that in the long run it's going to pay off, right? Like it's going to make better content, etc. And in times when it's tough, it's like, hey, we can make the old microphones work. But now I spend a lot on food. I like to eat out. When I go out, eat out in really nice places, I don't think about the tab. I had this thing. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know if I heard it from somewhere or if it came up myself. And I will never go out to eat with anybody or at any restaurant where I don't feel I can pick up the tab for everybody I'm with. And so that's kind of like my benchmark for, going out to eat or partying. I don't party at all. I don't do alcohol either. So like going out to eat for me is a lot cheaper than most people probably, because I don't drink. But eating out, like I don't ever look at my budget for eating out. Because I only go out to usually 2 or 3 times a week, but I like to go where I like to go, and I'll spend whatever I want. I'll get 3 appetizers or whatever, and I'll eat half of it if I want. I'm very wasteful. But yeah, that's just, eating out is probably like the one thing that I do that's a little over the top. But other than that, ultimately, when you look at every single dollar you spend today, if you actually believe you're going to build a great business that's going to have great returns, every single dollar you spend today is worth 1,000 in a few years. So if you actually look at that, and you start running the math on that, $5 latte, you start, man, if that $5 latte, if that was invested in my business, it's no longer a matter of 8 to 10%, like in the stock market that everyone talks about. If you just didn't use Starbucks, you'd get, if you're running a small business that has far better returns than 8 to 10%, if it's a well-run business, that $1 is literally worth $15 or $20 in a matter of a few years. Like that's hundreds of percent return on that dollar. So every dollar I can save today is probably exponentially worth more down the road. And so if you can keep doing that over time, it only takes like 10 to 15 years to build really great wealth. It really does. Hard work, being over-indexed and out of balance towards that thing. Whatever you put your attention on, that's where money's going to follow, right? If I put my attention on looking like a great physique, I'm going to go get a gym membership. I'm going to get better clothes. I'm going to probably get Botox. I'm going to get supplements. I'm going to eat really well, whatever. If I put my attention on getting a relationship, like you're probably going to date, you're going to go on Tinder, you're going to do whatever to figure out how to get a relationship, if that's really important to you. And if business and making money is really important to you, you're going to go all in on that one thing, and you're going to dedicate yourself to it, and you're going to put all your eggs in that basket, and all your time and energy is going to go towards it if you want to see very quick returns. All right, if you want to build a business over the next 40 years, yeah, you can probably do it in a very balanced, like only work a few hours a day and do the 4-hour work week thing. But if you want to have fast gains, the same way that if you want to lose 40 pounds, you're going to have to go on a very intense diet and workout regime in order to see those quick results. The same thing is true for business and building wealth. If you want to go ahead and go faster and build something really great in a shorter amount of time than 10, 20, 30 years, you better believe it's going to be all in. Lots of sacrifice, and sleeping. If it means sleeping on a mattress, then that's what we do. If it's building this thing in the middle of my living room, that's what we do. So yeah.
So if I'm a small business owner, I'm a viewer of yours, and I'm running a lawn care company, is there anything that you think I shouldn't cut a corner on? Like maybe you don't need to grab a weed whacker from the pawn shop. Yeah. Maybe that's something that's an asset that's worth picking up new and getting, the higher quality. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, like definitely equipment for now is I would buy new. My first stuff I bought used, and I paid for that dearly. But again, when you're first starting out, your time is worth less than it is when you've grown the company. So at the beginning, it was okay if something broke down or didn't work for a half a day, because like my time wasn't worth very much. So as your time, the value of your time increases, you can't have downtime. So things like trucks or equipment, computers, like I literally would never think about buying a new phone or a new computer, even just a few years ago. But now I realize that if I can save half a second every time I pick up my phone, I'm going to save literally hours every week. And now my hours are worth a significant amount of money. Like, it makes a lot of financial sense, right? And so as your time gets more valuable, things like equipment, having breakdowns, things not working correctly start to make a big difference. Literally, the reason why we're sitting in this 1-bedroom apartment is because the place where I've lived for the past 4 or 5 years, I live in the closet. It's next to a gym, and there's a train that goes right by it and shakes the entire place. I had to come to the realization that me having just 1 or 2 nights a month that I could not sleep because of a train or someone banging around in the gym was now costing me more than the rent on this 1-bedroom apartment, because it would reduce my efficiency. It'd make me grouchy, angry. I'd have a few days where I couldn't sleep because of that going on. And it was just, my time is now worth enough to literally pay, I rent this, I would otherwise be renting this out. So like, it's probably worth $1,500 a month to me, but it is worth 2 days extra of efficiency for me now.
You've earned the right to sleep now. You're successful enough where you're allowed to sleep a sound night of sleep.
Yeah.
All right. I had a couple questions about Augusta specifically, Augusta Lawn Care specifically. Mm-hmm. One thing I wondered, and I guess I kind of wondered this based on your experience with the Anytime Fitness. Do you wish the locations, each franchise was more customizable or more standardized? And what kind of freedom did they give you with the gym?
Yeah, so with the franchise, there's certain limitations because there's certain brand standards that have to be upheld. For us, for example, you have to paint your truck yellow. There is no other option. You have to have the brand of Max, our mascot, and you have to do a certain way, et cetera. The website, we govern that, et cetera. So there's certain limitations of entrepreneurial freedom that come with having a franchise. What you ultimately have to do is 2 things. 1, look at the track record of the franchise, and 2, you have to trust them that they're actually making decisions in your best interest. And so there's a few things that I've done to ensure that those things are intact. For example, I own 4 locations myself. So every system that I institute is having a direct impact on my revenues in my businesses because I own locations. And what people don't realize is as I grow a corporate location count, I'll probably make just as much revenue and have just as much impact personally, financially from my corporately owned franchises compared to the franchisor. And so when people see that, they say, okay, like not only is he just like making this franchise and selling franchise licenses, I have 4 of them and I'm going to get more of them every single year because I see them as a good investment. So I hope that element helps with the trust because I don't have a track record. I don't have 20 years and they have 4,000 plus 5,000 plus clubs in Anytime Fitness. I don't have that track record. I have 2 growing seasons and about 2.5 years of franchising experience. And I literally tell people, you don't really want to be a franchise. You don't really want to be a business owner until you're in year 3 to 5 in the lawn care landscaping industry. So there's probably not a whole lot of track record to go on. And so, when I look at Anytime Fitness, what I think they've failed at is what I really have tried to over-index on, that is communication with the franchisees. When COVID hit, we literally lost at Anytime Fitness. We had to close down. So we were like in panic. We didn't get very much communication from corporate, and our franchise business consultants all of a sudden just like send us emails saying, hey, we're being released from the company. Everything just disappeared. They would make some videos after a few weeks, but they were way behind. And like, again, in a time of battle, you expect there to be a leader. You expect someone to help you, and that's what a franchisor is there for. And so that has helped me, though, realize that that's what we need to over-index on with Augusta, and that is like we have daily masterminds now. We have prior to the masterminds every day with video, it was weekly reports. It was monthly check-ins with a coach to go over metrics and numbers. And quarterly roundtables on Zoom for the entire organization. So things like that has been helpful to see what we were weak in and then what we need to do better. But in terms of systems, procedures, a lot of what we do at Augusta is literally a rip-off from Anytime Fitness. Even like the things we call like Dashboard, Academy, all those back-end systems that we have is just straight rip-offs from Anytime Fitness. Because, hey, if it works, don't fix, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
It worked really well. But there was definitely parts where I'm like, hey, every franchisee at Anytime Fitness hates this one thing. All right, great. Let's make sure we don't do that at Augusta because that's going to be a pain point. So I know what it's like to be a franchisee. I know what it's like to be a franchisor. And I know what it's like to own my own franchise locations as a franchisee of Augusta Lawn Care. And so I try to take all those and look at the weaknesses, the pros and the cons, and then try to hopefully help all the franchisees. And then over time, that will build a track record that other people have no idea who I am will look at me like, that business model works. Oh, there's 500 locations that have done it really well. They've only had an attrition rate of 5% compared to the 50% in the lawn care landscape industry. Probably a good idea to use them. And so that would be the goal.
So as a franchisee for the gym, are there certain times where you were like had creative freedom to try something different or do something a little bit different that might make business sense, or try something that worked out for you where you weren't exactly doing, whatever their guidelines were? They gave you some freedom and you liked that. And were there any times where you felt constricted and maybe it stifled your ability to be profitable?
Not the latter a whole lot, because I bought into the idea that following the systems is the right thing. I trust them. I know that they have done this 1,000 times before. So me with my one location is not going to come with a better idea than them. I follow the systems religiously. And they give you certain parameters of freedom. Like, for example, you don't have to do training, like personal training at your club, but you can, and they're going to give you the resources. You don't have to do tanning. You don't have to do supplements, but they're going to give you the resources to make that happen. So at Augusta, we try to emulate that. It's like, look, we're not going to say you can only do mowing. You can do landscaping, and we're going to give you the resources for that. P4P will still work for project-based work. We'll still let you put it on your website. It'll still be on your truck. It still says landscaping. Like, we will allow that. But realizing that at the same token, at Anytime Fitness, they're not going to force me to do personal training, but they're going to tell me the metrics of here's why you should do it. And we really encourage you to do that. And I enjoy that there is some freedom, and that's what we have tried to do with Augusta too. Is like, hey, we're going to force you to do certain promotions, or force you to send one-click estimate emails, or force you into P4P. But we're going to give you all the systems, all the resources, and do it at a lower price than you can get anywhere else, so that you can make this happen, because we really believe it. Oh, and here's why. Here's the numbers. And that's really the goal. Like, I want to give them freedom to be a business owner, decide what services they want, decide who they're going to hire, how they're going to pay, but I'm going to give them the exact systems and procedures that I recommend and that I use at my locations. And it's the same thing Anytime Fitness. It's very consistent. The people who start trying to figure out other random things, like, oh, well, I don't want them to scan their fob at the door. I'll have this other key card thing, or whatever it is. Oh, we'll change the pricing to this, and we'll bundle the membership with training. Like, if they start doing all this other stuff, it's like, look, why do that? Someone else has figured it out 5,000 times. Just follow the systems. Because the only reason you would not follow those systems after someone's done it 5,000 times is you don't trust them. And so that's an important part of a franchisor or franchisee dynamic. You gotta have trust there, because if you don't, people will just go in 100 different directions, and you'll never actually have a system, right? And so I know it works. I've done it. I've seen which locations succeed now, which ones don't do well, and I have a pretty good idea of what's going to work. Very good idea. Like, if I do a corporate location, I give the recipe to the general manager and say, follow that to the T. As an employee, I can tell them what to do, because I know it works. And so my hope is that over time, the franchisees see more and more and more that getting outside the systems is not good for their business. And trying to be creative and add to the systems is something that should not be done until you've just nailed it and you've done so well. Or somehow you do not trust the franchisor, in which case at Augusta, you could leave with no charge.
As the franchisor for Augusta, do you wish that there was more constraints? Or do you wish that it was more customizable? Are you happy with where the balance is right now?
I think, honestly, if you talk to every franchisor, they would want the systems to be more rigid because they know what works. I know if I talk to Anytime Fitness, they would say there's certain things they wish they could just force upon a franchisee because they know it works. I would say the same thing. I wish there were certain things I could force on the franchisees, not because of any other reason that I know they'll be more successful. But then every single business owner and franchisee wants more freedom, and they want the ability to customize and do. So there's that fine balance of, I want them to have the freedom. I want them to be able to make their own business, but I also know it works, and I know exactly the recipe I would recommend in basically every single scenario. And I got to balance those two things out, because if I go too rigid, then if they fail because they're not good at sales or because they're just a horrible leader, they'll blame me because of the rigidity of the systems. And so you've got to have that balance. It's just a very, very big topic, honestly.
All right. If you had a magic wand today and you could fix one thing with Augusta Lawn Care,
oh, okay,
what would you wave that wand at?
Man, okay, yeah. Okay, if I could wave a wand, like anything.
Any one thing with your business, your business right now.
I would fix Command Center. I would make it completely automated where there would be no human beings. Hey, I have a magic wand. That's what I would do. Admin, office, sales, the back end of the business is the hardest to scale because you're dealing with humans that have to be trained and have flaws and make mistakes. And it's also the part of why most small businesses, especially in the home improvement industry, fail is because the admin cost and the fixed expense of having an office space, a building, an office manager, someone that has all the secrets of the business in their head, knows all the customers' accounts, et cetera. So it's very important that we have Command Center, but it's also the least scalable and hardest thing, least profitable, lowest profit margin, thing that we've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on. And so if I could wave a magic wand, it'd be literally robots that could do all the soft skills of Command Center, the billing, the invoicing, the accounting, dealing with customer service, franchisees not showing up on time at properties, customers that are mad. You just can't do that with a robot. You have to have a human. And you can try to create systems and everything, and you can have a robot that answers the phone, but that's going to make someone that's mad more mad. So if I could wave a wand, that's what I would fix. It's been the thing that's been the hardest for us to scale, the hardest thing for every single order of magnitude for the franchise. We have to completely revamp Command Center. At 10 locations, it was working like a fine, beautiful thing. And it just fell apart at 50 to 100 because at 100 it has to look completely different. At 1,000, it will not look like nothing we have today. And so you're basically recreating businesses every year or two at the size the pace that we've been growing. And that's very difficult. It's very unprofitable. It costs a lot of money. We make a lot of mistakes. And if I could have a robot do all that and be as efficient and cost the franchisees less, I would be thrilled. But to this date, we still need the Tesla robot to come along and do all that for us. But ultimately you're dealing with humans, and you have to realize that it's hard to scale. It's very expensive, and we have to figure out how to make and break that system every year or two right now. And that's just going to cost us a lot of money.
So knowing that you don't have a magic wand and knowing that is a major problem.
That's why I hired you.
What are you doing?
I hired Brian.
What are you doing to resolve it?
Simplification of the systems is important. I talk about it with every business, but we have to simplify at Command Center and start to silo now. For a long time, we tried to create generalistic Command Center that could answer all the questions for every customer. When a franchisee would call in, that they would know how to respond to the franchisee and actually deal with a business issue. The problem with that is that it takes too long to train someone up to this proficiency and skill level to be able to talk to our franchisees and understand from a business and marketing and all the rest of leadership perspective of why the decisions they're making in the business are. So it's very difficult to expect a frontline staff member in a matter of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a couple months to literally be able to talk to a franchisee, determine whether or not they should fire or hire a person, whether they should let a customer go because they're overdue. All these things are so intricate and hard to train and takes so long to train. And so how do I fix that? It's a matter of simplify everything. So we can get someone up to being proficient and highly skilled at one thing at Command Center. Maybe it's sending out estimates. Maybe it's answering the chatbot. Just one thing. And then as time goes on, if they're a high performer, they will need to learn more. But we have a very long ramp up of learning at Command Center. Like you're not going to get bored for at least 6 months. And there's payroll to learn. There's P4P to learn. There's so many things that you can learn. And so what I think we have to focus on is simplifying every single part and starting to create silos. And now we couldn't do that in the past because we didn't have enough people. You can't silo into, because there's probably 50 different things we do at Command Center. Everything from answering a chat to sending out estimates to checking emails to running payroll to checking, there's just a bazillion things we do. So if you actually tried to silo, what you'd end up having is a whole bunch of people doing many things, and it'd be very confusing. Now we're getting to the point where we have 50 plus people. That's when you start, you 5 people, you're scheduling. You 3 people, you're payroll. You 3 people, you're responsible for making sure you train everybody on phones. That's the part where we'll become more efficient and be able to get people up to a certain level of proficiency where they're profitable without burning literally $6,000 to $8,000 training someone before they're ever making $1 for the company. And that's why we burnt through so much money, is because we were training them on every single aspect of the company and everything, weeks and weeks and weeks of training before they ever made $1 for the business. When if we say, look, I just need to do one thing and send an estimate out, I could probably get someone up to proficiency in a couple days. just doing that one thing. Let them do that for a week. And then let's teach you how to do the phones. The phones is a big deal because now you got to know a lot of different things. So maybe that's not the second thing we train them on. Maybe the second thing we train them on is how to do email management for the franchisees, right? That's a little bit more systems. It's not as many like different variables. Like when a customer calls, you could have one of a bazillion different things going on. And so you already have to have a certain level of proficiency just to answer the phone. And so I think one of the mistakes we made is like, let's get people to be basic service, which is answering the phone, when answering the phone is one of the hardest things to do. When it's like, why don't we focus on still basic services, but things that are going to be more simple and regimented that we can get them to a certain level. And then once they master that and basically get bored, which if they're a high producer could be 2 days, let's move them on. But for someone that's going to take 6-8 weeks for us to try to get them on the phone and understanding P4P and understanding why we hire and all the rest of it, then that person might get 8 through 8 weeks and then flop. And we just wasted $8,000. By the time we've paid a trainer, that person's time, done role playing about selling over the phone and how to respond with emails, and we've done coaching and all the rest of it. We've spent all that money and they've not made a single dollar for the company. So I think the thing that how to fix that is simplify everything and then try to make it to where we can train someone, get them to be profitable for the business sooner. And that will ultimately be the thing that allows us to not have to keep raising prices to the franchisees. And that's the only thing I care about, is making sure that it is a no-brainer to use Command Center over building an office and buying land and having utilities and paying for internet and all the rest of it. That's what I want to keep them from, because that's what sinks most small businesses in the home improvement industry is all that overhead and fixed expenses. I'd rather keep it variable for the franchisees, and it's got to be a no-brainer. And so we got to keep the cost down.
Awesome. So it sounds like you want people who like can figure it out, run the weed eater for a week, get good at the weed eater, then we'll show you how the mower works, and then we'll teach you more about hardscaping. We'll kind of just build off you and just start you small so you can immediately start making money for the company. Which kind of segues to another question I have, which is, how do you feel about promoting from within versus bringing in someone from the outside? Because you could easily just hire someone from some consultation thing from, some big call center, and they could come in and really like pour gas on this. Why not do that?
It's something I thought about, and I probably will do at some point. I wouldn't do a consulting thing probably for several different reasons, because it takes so long to it takes a long time to get the consulting company to understand the way we do business. We do not operate like most call centers in that they're trying to maximize profit. I am not trying to maximize profit. I'm trying to make it as efficient as possible to save the franchisees money. And furthermore, I'm trying to take as much off their plate as possible, which means I'm going to do some things that are unscalable. Like running payroll for companies that you've never met, you don't know the employees, is not easy. And running P4P for them every single day and sending reports to their employees daily, and we don't even know these people, like that is not super scalable. It's not like a software. It's not something that can just be done and scaled. We are doing that at a loss because I know it's going to be good for the franchisees. So I know, like I have my MBA, like I know what certain things we lose money on and we should be cutting out from a financial perspective. And the only ways I would have a manager is if they got the culture and what we're trying to do. And they got the vision of why I'm taking the losses now. I'd be more inclined to hire from outside someone who had a lot of experience, but I would still expect them to go from basic training and go through right. Like no one gets hired to be the admiral in the Army. You're not getting hired at that position. You're going to start at basic training. You're going to go through your 6 week, you're going to go through Hell Week. Right? You're going to go through all that training the same way everyone else would. And so if I ever did hire someone, that's something I've definitely thought about. It's also a matter of what would that do to the culture of the business too, right? And the way that we built the culture is very entrepreneurial, and to bring in, there's a lot of debates about this, bringing in that level of structure too soon and what it does to everyone in the organization that's used of like, let's figure things out, let's make this better, let's improve quickly, like fast iterations. Bringing in someone who has all the answers is going to be potentially a shortcut, but you might literally lose half your team that was so bought into the vision of the company and making things better, and you lose the heart of the company in exchange for the systems that might be better, but you lose the heart of it all. And that's the balance I'm playing right now. We're in that weird size of business where we're not a small little business anymore, but we're also not so big where people expect a massive level of hierarchy and systems and you come in and someone just tells you what you're supposed to do. We encourage, embrace, and love when employers are like, hey, what about this? What about this idea? And we like think about it a little bit. I'm like, oh, like that's a good idea. Let's implement it. And it's done next week. That heart is lost if you just bring in someone who's like, this is how it's happening. And ultimately at that point, if you lose that, an employee just becomes hands. Like it's like you're a cog in the machine. We don't want you to think about your job. We don't want you to try to improve it. We don't want, like even the past week, we've improved multiple things like the work log, the drop down menu for that, little things. But the only reason that comes about is because the heart of the employee is improvement, make this better. And that will disappear if immediately you have someone come in and say, this is how it's happening. I don't care about what you think. This is how it's going to work. And in the short term, you will do better. But if you lose the heart of improvement, the company will stagnate at whatever level that person is. And so that's what I'm afraid of. At some point, we'll have to probably to really professionalize it. But I think a lot of companies do it too soon. And then they lose the heart, they lose those people, they'll actually leave, or it'll just become a place of like, I am told my orders, and I only carry out orders. I don't get creative, I don't think about how I can improve this, and that's what leads a company to stasis and just constant plateau.
So one of the things that you talked about was a big challenge with the command center is that there's so much that goes into training because it's such a complex job. Even though it doesn't seem like it should be, it ends up being that way. And so one solution is to try to simplify things or just kind of almost compartmentalize each task to some extent. There's got to be some pros and cons to having so many like problem solving things versus just like, I almost want to use the linchpin book here, but you've got all these jobs that are kind of like, we need you to think outside the box. There's not a black and white answer every time. I'm expecting you to be able to be a problem solver, which makes it more difficult to bring on new people. So there are some pros and cons to that. Do you wish now, looking back at it, that you'd have just made a factory where people just had the answers in front of them? Or are you happy with the fact that so many people are having to use their brains to come up with the answers to day-to-day problems?
Yeah, like I've always said that it's easy to hire hands. It's a lot harder to retain heads, right? And what I mean by that is I can go hire a bunch of people tomorrow to work with their hands, but someone who can use their head and actually think creatively is worth far more than 100 hands. And so I think that too much standardization to some point will discourage the person with the head, because why do I need my head? Why do I even need to think about my job? Why do I need to think about it at night about a better way to do something or how we can organize or train better? Why? Because they just want me to be hands. They just want me to come to my job every single day, clock in, clock out, don't break anything, don't mess up anything, just do your job. And you're going to get a lot of B players doing that. And ultimately, I'm okay with the fact that we are a little bit unprofitable. I'm okay if I can keep A players around. We'll build something really cool. And then down the road, we can bring in some great executive to figure out all the mistakes that we could have figured out otherwise. But it'd be very demoralizing for me to pull in someone right now and then tell you how to train people and tell you, this is the manual, do it this way. Right? I'd rather take us a couple of years. We're going to figure it out. But at the heart of that, when you get on a call with a franchisee, like you do each morning with the ones that are in a state of emergency, you actually care. And you're coming up with solutions because humans don't follow systems. When you wake up, it's not like your body's like robot, like a injection food. We as humans, we're going to, like, you're going to have people call out sick. You're going to have jobs that go south. You're going to have customers that cancel. You're going to have customers that freak out at you. That's going to be part of business. And so if I've trained you to follow the system so well and it's so black and white, when someone throws you something gray, you have no idea what you're doing. And that's what, when you get on a call every single morning, talking to franchise, like business owners, you as an employee who's never owned a business are able to actually discourse with them because you've been taught how to think creatively. And that's why you thrive. And you come up with solutions on the fly. They throw a piece of information like, this job's going south. Okay, great. I'm going to move this off. Let's go ahead and try to set up some interviews for this Thursday. Like, you're immediately jumping into that, not because, hey, here's the systems on how to fix a business when someone calls about being behind on a job. Like, we'd have a bazillion different things, like systems that have to create there. It's impossible. But the ability to think and use someone's head is what will make up for a lot of the failure of systems that a small business has at the beginning. And so I'd rather have the heart correct. of the organism and then focus on the other parts. And that is the systems and the procedures and how I work out and what I eat and all that. Have a healthy heart. If the heart's not pumping right, we're just all going to die. I don't care how strong your muscles are in your arms and all the rest of it and how good you eat. If your heart's messed up, you're dead. And so I don't want to wreck the heart of Augusta and the heart of what we're trying to do. And I want people like you to feel like you're challenged and not just following a script. I want you to hop on a call and talk to a business owner and tell them what to do. And you have full confidence in what you're saying, not because you've seen it 1,000 times, but because in your heart, you know that you're looking out for their best interest and what you're saying is going to work because you've seen it happen. And you trust the people that are working below and above you because they've said the same thing. And you're literally just reciting what some other manager or someone next to you just said to another franchisee, but you know it works and you trust them. And systems don't operate on trust. Systems operate on black, white, yes, no, what, ones and zeros. And so if you lose the heart of the organization, people will get a curveball when you throw a 0.5 at them. They'll fall apart when you throw a grayscale in them. And so although systems are great, I talk about them so much because most people index way too far to the other side, which is like they don't have any systems. There's a part of it, if you go too systems oriented, you become the next IBM. You become the next company that was massive in their day and now is no longer in existence because they fell into systems so much they lost the heart of what they were doing. They lost the innovation. And that's what leads to ultimate decay of a business.
So you mentioned small businesses there. And for the Chuck and the Trucks watching this, would you encourage them to look for employees and coworkers to surround themselves with who are more thinking with their head? Or would you encourage them to just find people who could follow the systems and be productive and just kind of do the way they're trained?
At every stage of business, you need different people, right? If you're really entrepreneurial, trying to get something off the ground, build something really big, you're probably going to want someone that's more, think with their heart, buy into the vision, the goal, and then you figure out stuff later kind of thing. If you get someone who's too systems oriented, they're going to be bucking against you every single step of the road. They're not going to grow. They're not going to expand. They're not going to hire. I'm not going to take any risk. So there's a balance, right? And I look at someone like you versus someone like Liz. You're very systems oriented. She's more the heart, let's just figure things out, that sort of thing. So as a company grows, you need both. You need both. Again, back to the balance thing. I'm not in this is the perfect executive. That's not going to happen. I need both angles here. I need both perspectives. I need both extremes. And somewhere in the middle, there is a balance. But trying to find that person is good luck. So I'd rather just go out, hey, what's the strengths, what the weaknesses, get perspectives, and then I as an owner or a CEO have to make the decision, but I get both perspectives. And so as a company grows, you have the advantage of having more people, which gives you more perspectives, and that's why diversity is so important. Having different trains of thought and different ways of looking at things, no one is right. I am not right on certain things. I go into a manager's meeting, I say something, and they're like, no, that's stupid. I'm like, why? This, and this. Oh, yeah, totally. Forget it. Forget I even said it. Let's just move on. But if we had a system, it's okay, so Mike says this, then we have a 3-week trial period. Immediately we were able to fix, nip the thing in the bud and not do it because it's a bad idea, right? But if you follow the systems too much, so there's a balance, both directions. And I'm a big believer in, as the company grows, hiring both extremes, and then somewhere in the middle, there's a balance.
Is there something that you see a lot of business owners doing that kind of looks great from the onset, but it's actually kind of a trap, and a lot of people are making this same mistake all the time?
Yeah, delegating way too quickly and thinking that paying them a salary or giving them money is going to somehow give them the heart, right? So some people are like, man, I don't have the person with the heart. I don't have a Liz. I don't have a Brian that cares about the business and cares about the franchisees. So I'll just give them money. That does not create anything. We're seeing it right now with locations you're dealing with right now that have just thrown salaries at people. That is not going to help them. That is not going to give them the desire to actually make meaningful change for the business or push themselves or anything like that. That is an intrinsic something. It cannot come from giving them more money, cannot give them a title or giving them a company truck. And I see that far too often. People think, oh man, I'm overwhelmed as a business owner. I need to find someone else. I need to find my number 2. I need to find, and then I'll just give them money. I'll just give them a position. I'll just make so-and-so a title. I'll give them a salary. I'll give them a job contract. It's that does not create what you're looking for. It's only going to create more issues because now you're going to have all sorts of conflicts of interest and money. And now they're wanting to get off earlier and all sorts of garbage. So I think sometimes we want to delegate because we've heard it's a good thing to do. Don't micromanage, just delegate to other people. And when we delegate, give them a bunch of money or give them some sort of title or something that they want to appease them and think that somehow that's going to make them care more about the business. It has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with title. Someone either has it or they don't. And what you want to do is realize who has it and then just try to give them the challenges they need to stay engaged. A really high-performing employee doesn't stay because of the money. They stay because of the challenge and there's something that they feel like they're making progress in. And if they produce enough value, they should be compensated more. And if they don't, they should go take those skills and go make more money someplace else. But most high performers, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at them. If they're not getting challenged and they're not able to think with their head and they're just told constantly, follow the system, follow the book, they will not want to stay. And so there's that fine balance like we talked about.
I'm out of questions. I'm out of questions.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Brian. I really appreciate it. And
it was so fun.
It was great. And if anyone here has questions for Brian, in the comments below, he'll be scrolling through.
For sure.
So leave a really negative comment for Brian or a question or anything like that. But I really appreciate you coming on. And
please like this video more than Liz's
yes,
video.
Yes, that is the goal of the entire video, to get more likes than Liz's video so he can have that as a bargaining chip for the next team meeting. So thanks so much, everyone, and I hope you learned something, and we'll see you tomorrow.